I was chatting to a lovely woman last week about the podcast and what it's about. And we were talking obviously about menstrual cycles, relationships, being queer. And she said to me, I guess most lesbian couples sync, right? And I laughed, not because it was a silly question, but because it's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about relationships where both people have a menstrual cycle, that like somehow we all sync up and then float through life understanding each other perfectly. And I chuckled because I said to her, do you and your girlfriend sync up? And she was like, oh, no. um, and she kind of explained why she thought that was. And yeah, so the thing is, I'm sure some couples sync up, but many don't. And even when you do sync up, it doesn't kind of like magically solve it for you. It doesn't make everything, like I said, like rosy and mean we float through life understanding each other perfectly. You know, there's a lot of love and joy in the shared experience of being a menstruator. Like there's absolute truth in that and understanding kind of what each other's going through. But there also can be a lot of shadows and difficult things that we're navigating, not just as individuals and how we feel and are affected by like the different hormonal changes in our patterns, but like how they come together in a relationship and how we navigate those. You know, it can be complex, messy, emotional. And that's like, you know, that's the conversation I'm really passionate about. Like, how are other couples navigating this? Because it doesn't need to take away from our or impact our capacity to love or love each other. You know, so like to me, like the real magic isn't in syncing. It's in understanding yourself, understanding your partner, and having this language for what's happening between you two. So here you are today, listening to episode 7 of the Period Lesbian with me, Lizzy, your host, because I'm so passionate about this topic, you know, both for you as an individual and getting to know your natural rhythm, and how you navigate that. You know, our relationship with ourselves shapes everything, and understanding our menstrual cycle and understanding our natural rhythm, it, you know, has such a role in that. But, you know, also how you navigate 2 cycles in a relationship. You know, I wanted a platform where we could share more of those experiences and where myself and upcoming guests could like offer support and offer just be able to hear what other people are going through and how they navigate it. So today's episode is all about charting your cycle to get to know your natural rhythm and your partner's. If you've been listening, you might be thinking, cool, Lizzy, like I'm getting it. I get that I have a natural rhythm. I get that my partner has one. I'm understanding there are different phases of the cycle, that I'll be feeling differently across the cycle, that they will be, and that they might be coming together, and that's important for us to understand. But like, how do we do that? How do we figure all of this out? You know, how do me and my partner get to know our rhythms, our sticky days, our good days, and start communicating about it? And that starts with charting your cycle. So that's what we're going to explore today. Charting your cycle. We're going to look at how you get started, what you're meant to be noticing and writing down, how this is going to support you, and how this is going to support your relationship. I think this will be a good episode probably to save and come back to. I think, you know, with charting your cycle, sometimes it's good to have a bit of a refresher, like after a few months, as you begin to develop that like awareness, your cycle awareness practice. It's also a great one to send to your partner, you know, getting them involved, but also your friends. You know, like do this with your partner, but even if you don't have a partner, do it with your friends. So Beth and I obviously share our cycle check-ins nearly every day, but equally, like a lot of our girlfriends and pals track their cycles. Obviously, and you're in my world, it's all I talk about. Not all I talk about, but you know, we will do cycle check-ins. Often if we're spending the weekend together, we're all going away, we're having a day out. One, it's kind of a natural way that we often ask, like, how are you feeling? What cycle day are you on? But also just sometimes it's like, okay, we're all away together this weekend. What's in the room? So get your pals involved. So charting your cycle. What we want to be doing here is going deeper than just an app tracking for us, right? So often I'll ask someone if they chart their cycle and they'll answer yes, but it's just them putting in an app the day they got their period and maybe logging a few of those like symptoms that the app will tell them, or like their energy. I'd really invite you to get back to basics and use a paper and pen if you can, if that feels accessible to you. Whether it's a journal, a diary, like with the dates in it, a calendar that you go and buy, like a wall calendar, or just a notepad, but something you can write on and look back over with like ease, and where you can just free write. One of the things I don't love about apps, particularly when you're just starting to do this work, is it's very suggestive about what you're doing. And this is all about you getting to know you. It's not about an app telling you how you should feel. And so each day, you're going to write down the day, the date, if it's not already on the page, and then the cycle day you're on, and ideally the phase that you're in. I use the inner season model, which I think I explained in episode 5. So if you haven't listened to episode 5, go back to that. So I'll put down what inner season I'm in, and then the cycle day. If you're looking to deepen your awareness and your language around your menstrual cycle, definitely listen to episode 5. I also have an audio course on that you can download off my website, which goes into depth of each of the phases. If you're looking for a book to read on that, I definitely start with a book called Wild Power by Alexandra Pope and Shani Hugo Willitzer. Anyway, so cycle day 1 is the first day of your period. So that's the first day of your full blood flow, and you count on from that point. So the next day is cycle day 2, the following day is cycle day 3, and you keep counting all the way up until you get your next period. So I think one of the places where people get confused and kind of, I don't know what the word is, I was going to say mess up, but that's not really the right way of putting it, is they stop counting when their period stops. So they kind of think that they're they just count until their period stops and then they stop. But you want to kind of count beyond that. So, for example, I'm recording this podcast on a Thursday. I'm on cycle day 9 today. I started my period last Wednesday, so just over a week ago. My period stopped, my bleeding stopped on Sunday on cycle day 5, but I keep counting. So today I'm cycle day 9. So you keep counting all the way up until your next period. Each day, you're kind of recording, writing down, like I mentioned, the day, the date, the cycle day you're on, and the phase you're in. So today I'm in cycle day 9. I have quite a short cycle, so I'm moving into my inner summer, but for most people, this would be their inner spring. And then, so that's the kind of the beginnings of the how. And then it's what else am I charting? What else should I be writing down? There are a few different ways you can do this, and that I'll explain. It's all about finding what word works for you. I do a combination of them depending where I am on my cycle and how I'm feeling. But it's all about capturing, each day, what it's like to be you. Asking yourself, what is it like to be me today? What does it feel like to be me? What is the internal atmosphere in me? It's kind of like your weather barometer almost. So you could just start writing down 1 or 2 words that sum up how you're feeling that day. Happy, light, sluggish, angsty, frustrated, tired but calm, energized but anxious, love everything and everyone, in love, questioning everything. Just a word or 2 that just sums up how you're feeling and what it's like to be you. If you're working on something like your energy or your anxiety, confidence, rage maybe you want to track that, chart that every day and give it a score out of 5 perhaps. And equally, for someone who really likes structure, you could do the 4 bodies check-in, which is your physical, emotional, mental and spiritual bodies. I go through those in more detail in the Your Connection series, Your Cycle, Your Connection series you can download from my website. It's free. It's 3 5-minute videos. And so I explain that if you really kind of enjoy a bit of structure. But similar to the 4 bodies, you could write something down for your energy each day, your mood, how connected to yourself you felt, and how connected to the world you feel, or how connected to your partner and your friends. And so I mentioned today I'm on cycle day 9. And I'm really moving into my summer. I kind of in that spring summer crossover, I can really feel my energy rising. I'm talking a little bit fast probably for today. I can just feel the energy and I feel a little bit lighter, like I've got this, like let's just get on. Different experience, my cycle day 6 and 7 where I was in the beginning of the week. Cycle day 6 and 7 always have something like a little overwhelmed or like warming up. I always feel like I'm warming up in those days, but I'm also a little bit hesitant. Like I'm so aware of everything I need to do and it's a little overwhelming. So you just get to know over time, like what roughly these days feel like for you. So yeah, there's no right or wrong. I just want to say there's no right or wrong with charting your cycle like that. And there will be days where you probably won't want to write anything. And I always say to people, that's kind of information too. Equally, if you're a bit arty, maybe you don't want to write a word, but you kind of just want to draw something. Cool. Like just go with it. But each day, just writing down cycle day you're on, the phase you're in, and what it feels like to be you. So you've started charting this, right? You're charting your cycle every day. Like, what are you going to gain from this? So firstly, you're going to get to know yourself in a way that you've just not known before, right? You're turning towards yourself and actually asking yourself and checking in with yourself in a way that you just probably haven't before. And like, the world tells us that we should be the same every day. Like we've been given this message, like be the same every day. All these ideas about consistency, being on all the time, and so many of us like that. I always think like breeds like this just shame. Like there's something wrong with us, and like so we start each day with an expectation of how we should be, and feeling like not enough. Because we're not feeling these things steady, consistent, energized, happy, fine. Like, it's like, why am I not feeling like I was yesterday or 2 days ago? Or like, oh my God, why do I feel this way today? And when we're checking in and charting our cycle, we're relating to ourselves in a different way. We're relating to ourselves with curiosity versus an expectation. So instead of feeling like you're wrong or bad for not feeling or being a certain way, you're being curious about like what is my natural rhythm? Like who am I today? What's around for me? You're not bypassing yourself, just pushing through again, which is what we've been taught. You're being curious. And you are going to have to slow down a little bit to do this. There is an invitation to slow down in this. Knowledge is power. Self-knowledge is the most powerful kind. So you're turning towards yourself rather than turning away from yourself each day. And that in itself is going to help you build a relationship with yourself, an intimacy that perhaps you've just not known before. This brings me on to then also getting to know your natural rhythm, your patterns. You're going to get to know what each phase feels like. Like each of the 4 phases will kind of have a dominant energy or a dominant emotion or psyche. And you're going to begin to notice these. And that's going to be really powerful in understanding yourself, but equally in your relationship. And you're also going to get to know specific days. There will be days, like after you've been doing this for about 3 months, you'll start to get this data, this like self data, about yourself. And you'll start to notice consistent patterns. There will be days where you will write, sometimes word for word, you'll flip back over 3 months and you'll notice you've written the same word on like day, 7, day 12, day 18, all very similar. And that is just like, self knowledge gold. Um, yeah, like all of these days might have something kind of consistently have something about them that needs attention and care. For me, those days, like when I first started doing this, I think I explained this in like episode 1 or 2. Cycle day 23 was a day that I realized like everything came crashing down. And because I didn't know how to care for myself on that day 23, it would then have a domino effect. So very early on, I learned that day 23 was a day that I really needed to hone in and care for myself. Now, the way I work with my cycle, like the way that I experience myself across my cycle, day 6 and 7, I think I've mentioned that a lot across the cycle are days that really just need a lot of attention and care. Around sort of like the 9, 10, 11, 12, I can be very hyper. It's kind of around my ovulation, and it's joyful, it's wonderful, I love it. The people around me can find it a little overwhelming, and I can kind of lose myself in it a little bit, and that can have a knock-on effect later on in my cycle. So it's something about like, how do I kind of keep myself grounded in that phase? Cycle day 17, again, it's not such a sticky day as it used to be, but it's just a day that I really notice, like I will just notice like my body just pull back. It's like this real subtle feeling where it's saying like, okay, we've had a really good run out in the world now, we're just going to pull back a little bit. And then obviously cycle day, I say obviously, it might not be obvious to people, cycle day 25, 26, just before I get my period, I am very much in the void and can be in the void on those days. And I know there's just like nothing for me to achieve on those days. And I've really had to learn how to surrender to that. So like there are just certain days across my cycle that I know are sticky, and Beth knows that, right? And equally there are certain days across her cycle that she knows are sticky, that we just know, like cycle day 18 is just like, yep, I'm on cycle day 18. Equally for her around like 13, 14, she gets a bit of a post-ovulation dip. So we can like have those conversations. So yeah, you get to know your natural rhythm and your ebbs and flows and your cyclicity and your pattern. And like from this, you can plan and care for yourself. Like you stop being such a mystery to yourself, or being sidelined by your moods or your energy, or frightened by them, because you're just so much more aware. Like that's one of the things, like I almost used to feel like quite devastated. Like I would be devastated because I would just be sidelined, and I'd think, well, I was doing so well and now I'm not, and like what's happened? Or like me and Beth were doing so well and now like we've woken up and it's like we're in a different universe, and what's happened? And understanding our cycle has really supported ourselves as individuals, but then as a couple. And it's a real opportunity to experiment with like giving yourself what you need as well. Like, we live in a world where we've received messages like a good woman is a woman with no needs. And so often we have a difficult relationship with giving ourselves what we need, saying what we want. And so like in this beautiful container of your cycle and getting to know your cycle, you can practice with giving yourself what you need. Even before you start communicating that with your partner or your friends and family. If you're someone who's like, oh, I really struggle with boundaries and I really want to practice boundaries and I want to know my boundaries, starting with your cycle is wonderful, because you start that with yourself first. And this really builds intimacy and trust with yourself. It's one of the reasons why I love working with the cycle in my one-to-one work. I mean, it's so many reasons. But like so many people struggle with trusting themselves. And it's like, how do you trust yourself in the big stuff? Well, you've got to be able to trust yourself, listen to your body, and trust yourself in the small stuff, like rest, pleasure, space. You've got to be able to get to know your yeses and your nos. And you can do this through tuning to your cycle, tuning to your body, tuning to your everyday rhythm. And once you start doing this for yourself, then you can start doing that with your partner. And that is just incredible. So yeah, like maybe with your partner, you just start by telling each other what cycle your day you're on. It might just be that. Like, I'm on cycle day 1 today. I don't really know what that means, but I'm cycle day 1. I'm on cycle day 18 today. I don't really know what that means for me, but I'm just figuring it out. And then over time, you start kind of bringing in a bit of like what's around for you. Or just like, yeah, this is just what I'm noticing. This is what I'm noticing today. So if you and your partner are just starting out with this, like, like there's no pressure to get it right. Like, that's my big thing. There's no right or wrong here. And so maybe you make it a ritual, and you do it either at the beginning or the end of each day, and you have time that you're doing a daily cycle check-in. I'm a geek for this stuff, so I'm like, I love it. Beth and I naturally do this in the mornings now, right? When we have a cup of tea in bed, we're often doing our thing. She'll be reading her book, I'll be journaling, and it's just kind of a bit of like, what have we got planned for today? This is what cycle day I'm on. Back in the day when we were learning about our cycles, we were much more intentional about it, like much more intentional about our check-ins and what we would share. And maybe like both in the day, what we were noticing, but then also at the end of the day, what we were noticing, and just sharing what we were noticing becoming sticky days for us or great days for us, like where we were noticing like, this is not just a sticky day for me, but I'm noticing that when I'm in my spring and you're on your autumn, when I'm around day 6, 7 and you're around day, I don't know, 23, it just feels really funky. And we started to be able to talk around that sort of stuff. But to get to that place, it just started with simply, hey, I'm on cycle day 5 today. What cycle day are you on? What are you noticing? This is what I'm noticing. And so it was just like building it. You'll get to notice similarities. Maybe you'll notice similarities across your cycles, but you're also going to notice differences, and that's the big thing. That goes back to my point at the beginning. I think there's this assumption that we experience our cycles like exactly the same and it's all like rosy and we just float through life. And I'm like, no, that is just not true. And maybe it is for some people, but for a lot of us, we experience our cycles very differently, for one. And two, there are just so many combinations that you could wake up with, depending on how regular your cycle is and the length of your cycle. Because one of you might have a 25-day cycle and the other might have a 30-day cycle. So that means like sort of over the months, it's always changing. It's never consistently the same, if that makes sense. Sometimes one of you are going to be on cycle day 1 and the other one's going to be on cycle day 30. And then next month, one will be on cycle day, 5, and the other one will be on cycle day, 30. And like, it's terrible maths, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. So like, this is why I'm like, it's so important. And yeah, you'll notice like what certain days feel good, what days don't feel good. What are great times in both of your cycles for you to capitalize on and be together and do some great things? What are certain parts of your cycle for you guys not to? Or maybe to be avoiding certain topics, activities. But it just takes time. So just talking about it every day, bringing in this new language, you're really going to get to know each other. You're going to get to know each other's cycles. Like I said, it takes about 3 months of your own cycle to get to know your rhythm. So give both you and your partner time to learn and practice this. It takes time. And it's also a lifetime practice. It's not something you master. You are not something to master. And also our cycle likes to do a cheeky thing on us. Like you settle into it, you get to know your natural rhythm, and then somehow it kind of slightly shifts. And your cycle might shift with things like things that are going on in your life. The outer season, right? We all know the outer seasons impact how we feel, our body, our circadian rhythm, etc. So it's exactly the same for your cycle. And also the reason why I say this is a lifetime practice is that we're all going to go through perimenopause and our cycle's going to change massively then. And I see and I hear from a lot of couples, queer couples, that really struggle with this phase because it's a very turbulent time for individuals. It can be. And then when you've got 2 people going through that, maybe at the same time, maybe at different times. So this is again why this is really powerful and why I'm really passionate about it. Um, I also think cycle check-ins, like what cycle day I'm on, what's around for me, is great in relationships for people who are not used to saying what they need or asking for what they need or just sharing. So for people who really struggle to say what they need, this can be a really lovely way to practice it. Um, I think I shared this in like episode 1 or 2, but I used to really struggle with saying no to things. And just saying like, I just really struggled to say no. And Beth is super, super sociable, and I am, but sociable. I need a lot of downtime also. And when we started practicing cycle awareness together, or first I did, it really helped me be able to just say, actually, I really need to spend today in. I need to spend tonight in, or like this week in our plans, like Wednesday, I'm going to have a night to myself. And because I could bring in the language around my cycle, it really supported me. So if that's you, if you really struggle to like to say no or say what you need, take it from me, like cycle awareness, I've really learned to express my needs and my boundaries. Again, it's bringing in this new language for you and your partner. It's a lovely container, and it builds intimacy, understanding, grace, respect. Um, yeah, over time you're going to notice these things, these relationship patterns, your yeses, your nos. Um, Yeah, and there's just different parts of our cycle that Beth and I capitalize on, different parts of our cycles that we just. I was at a talk on the weekend, and I said to people, like, it's just like a big handle with care sign. Like, Bethany and I know, just know there are certain parts of our cycle where we have a lot of boundaries around, we bring a lot of care, we bring a lot of space because we know what it's what we need. The last thing I want to say, which will make more sense as you go on and learn about your cycle, is remembering that you're just not meant to be the same every day. Our energy, our mood, and our emotion changes. And along with that, there are also parts of your cycle where you might notice more vulnerabilities present. Like if you have old wounds that show up, I mean, I think most of us do, right? Parts of yourself that are a little bit more tender, they might be more present in certain parts of your cycle. This is, again, why I love working with it in my one-to-one work, because people are often going to coaching, therapy, etc., because they're working through something. And there will potentially be different parts of your cycle where they're just more present. So when we start to track our cycle, like, before I go on, and those old wounds coming up in ourselves are things that can really rock relationships, right? And it's hard because it's like we're struggling with this thing with ourselves, and then it's disrupting our relationship. We're either pulling away from our partner. Sometimes we might take it out on a partner or make it about them. Our partners can be expecting us to be the same way. So like and they're being a bit like, well, what the hell's going on? Some people can also think it's about them. We see this, I see this a lot in relationships. I have a real tendency to lean towards a bit of codependency, which means I can infer other people's feelings as my own. And then I take them on, and it's like, what have I done? And I'm trying to fix things. And this is another thing that cycle awareness has really helped me with, is like separating myself from other people's experiences. And so, yeah, across your cycle, different vulnerabilities, different old wounds, childhood wounds, etc., can pop up. And when you start to get to know those across your cycle, you can bring so much more care to it, right? And you don't have to make sense of it. It's not necessarily about making total sense of it. It's just noticing it, and you're being able to say to your partner, I really notice there's a real vulnerability or tenderness around these certain days. I don't even know what I need yet. I don't even know what I need from you. I'm just letting you know. And over time, you build on that. And so, like, instead of you being sidelined by it, instead of your partner being sidelined by it, you're able to communicate that. And again, that's where this cycle awareness goes deeper, and it gets a lot deeper and richer and more supportive. Yeah, so I'm reading my notes, guys. What have I got here? So I think that's really it, really. Like, just noticing, like, there's no pressure to get this right, as I've mentioned. It's just, I keep noticing. I'm on cycle day 16, and over time it might be noticing. I just keep noticing that cycle day 16 is like really rough for me. I can't quite put words to it yet, but I just want you to know. Oh, hey, I'm really noticing that cycle day 22 and 23, I need to pull back from the world. I'm just letting you know that I'm going to experiment with not scheduling anything on those days for the next few months, and that might be feel a little bit disruptive, but it's kind of what I really need to do. So yeah, like just trying. Like, I think the experimenting with your cycle, and you don't have to get it right every cycle. The beauty about having a cycle every month is that we can try again next month. Hopefully that has helped you understand like the charting of the cycle and get started. Again, if you notice you fall out of habit, get back to it when you can. No one's perfect. No one charts perfectly every day. That's totally normal. And like I said, that's kind of data too. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help. You can voice note me on the gram if you're a voice noter, pop me an email. Also, just come say hi. I'd love to hear from you. We're slowly building a wonderful community here with Period Lesbian. It's early on, but it's really amazing. And I'd love for you to help keep that going. So send this to all your lesbian and queer menstruating friends. That would be amazing. If you have a guest that you think would be wonderful, send them my way. If you have got something to share and you want to be on, message me, let me know. We've got some great guests coming up. I think I mentioned in the last podcast around PMDD, neurodiversity, getting to know your cycle and what it's brought into their relationship. So look out for those. I can't wait to catch up with you next time, and thank you so much for being here.